Really appreciate it. So welcome to our Honoring Hispanic Heritage. And I am Lori, I'm with Career Services, and I'm joined today by my wonderful colleague, Lisa Gettings. Lisa is going to be my co-host, and so she's going to be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to put those in the chat. And I have a couple of polls throughout the chat, just really at the very beginning and at the very end, just to kind of get a gauge on what everyone is looking for today's presentation. So before I launch that first poll, first of all, I want to thank our speakers for being here. I really appreciate. They are all such busy people, and they are doing so many wonderful things. So I really appreciate all of you taking the time to be here. Our alumni always achieve so many wonderful things. So let's get right to it. So I'm going to kick it off with Jimena. I'm going to introduce you really quick. So Jimena Luna is a proud Latina from I apologize. Is it Nayarit, Mexico?
Nayarit. Yes.
Nayarit. I apologize. Nayarit. And she holds a Bachelor of Arts in Modern Languages in Spanish Language and Literature from the University of North Georgia, and has a Master of Arts in Latinx Studies and Spanish Literature from University of Georgia. And during her time at UNG, she was a part of LSA, CAMP, and SGA, so very busy. Kept yourself occupied while you were here, definitely using up some good time there. Jimena is currently a Spanish instructor at UGA, and her research interests are in Latinx studies, Latin American literature, cultural studies, and Mexican American culture. And as a Spanish instructor, she hopes to continue supporting Latinx students and embracing her heritage. So thank you, Jimena, for being here. Really appreciate it. So next up, we have Udis Calderon, and he graduated in 2020 and holds a degree in communication with a specialized focus in public relations. And he presently works as a realtor in Hall County, where he combines his refined communication skills and unwavering commitment to serving clients. Alongside his academic pursuits at UNG, Udis actively participated in numerous organizations, including the Residence Life Orientation, or NEST, SGA, Latino Student Association, Debate Club, and Greek Life. So also very busy. His diverse involvements have enriched his multifaceted perspective, enabling him to forge meaningful connections and make a lasting impact in both his professional and personal endeavors. So thank you, Udis, and I apologize, I am stumbling all over my words. I think I'm just trying to go really fast, and so I'm just tripping up over my own self. But thank you, Udis, for being here. Really appreciate it. And Natalie Morales Villa, she's a social entrepreneur at, see, now I can't even say entrepreneur and motivational speaker. Apparently, I need some help with that today. She has a master's degree from Harvard Graduate School of Education. She graduated from UNG in 2019 with a Bachelor's of Political Science and Spanish Translation certificate. Her story has been featured on CBS, Univision, ABC News, Good Morning America, Al Dia News, and Telemundo. She's all over the place. So many amazing things. She was also a part of LSA while at UNG, Goizeta Scholarship, and McNair Scholar. And as a McNair Scholar, she conducted research on the increase in Latinx enrollment at UNG and Hispanic Serving Institution. And she received various national competitive scholarships to study abroad in Peru and Spain, including the Hispanic Scholarship Fund and the Gilman Scholarship. So all very accomplished people, really excited to have all of you here. Really appreciate your time. So I am going to kick it off first with a poll. So that way, those of our guests who are here, all of our students that are here, we'd like to know a little bit more about what are you hoping to learn today from our amazing alumni? And you can choose multiple. So would you like to know more detail about their careers? Any kind of hurdles that they experienced and how they overcame them, how their UNG education helped them succeed, or tips for college and career success, because, you know, as you can tell, all of them were heavily involved while they were at UNG. And they were able to take advantage of a lot of opportunities, and then, of course, have that translate into, you know, being successful after their college time as well. So I'll give you just another second, since I know sometimes there's a little bit of a delay there with doing the different polls. All right, so I'll go ahead and end that poll and share the results. So it looks like most people want to know a little bit more about some of the hurdles that you may have faced and how you overcame them, how UNG has helped you to succeed, and any kind of tips for college and career success. So fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for participating in the poll. So I'm going to start off with some of our questions that we have for our panelists today. Udis, I'm going to kick it off with you. And if you could tell us a little bit more, I mean, you obviously were very involved at UNG. So if you could tell us a little bit more about your time at UNG and how that has related to your current career.
Yeah, of course. So at UNG, my first year, I wasn't really involved. I just used to go to class and go home, really. And then as I started to get involved, many opportunities came along. I remember one of the first things I applied was to be an orientation leader. And of course, I was very shy. And I really didn't know what I was applying for. One of my friends just told me to apply, and I did. And through orientation, obviously, that is where we learn about pretty much the whole university and the whole departments that the university has to offer. Therefore, I started getting involved with other organizations, other places. And that's when the opportunities came along. I mean, I studied abroad in China. I got to experience living on campus, which I think those opportunities would have not been available, or not that they were not available, but I would have not known about them if I was not involved. In my time at UNG, really, as you know, a Latino coming into university, that nobody in my family has done this before. You're like a deer in headlights. If they tell you to jump, you jump. And if they tell you to run, you run. So really what I loved about UNG is just how much the people that work for UNG and the professors care about the student success. I mean, I went to some of my mentors all the time and asked for help. And I think if you ask for help by UNG, you will find the resources that you need. And now I look back, everything I did in college, and I always joke with people in different settings. And I'm like, in college, I used to get up at 7 and go up into midnight. And I don't know if I could do that now that I'm a little older. But really, all the connections that I made, I mean, I still talk to people from biology 1101 up into, 400 classes. I still talk to a lot of my professors. I still talk a lot with the professional staff at UNG. So those connections that I made there have impacted my business so much in the real estate world. And I think that's what college is about, making those connections that will last for a lifetime.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I remember you studying abroad as well, and watching all the updates and all that on social media. So, and that does really just give you another perspective, and being able to, relate to a broader audience. And like you said, a lot of times it is scary at first. And so it's a good thing you listen to your friend. I'm sure that's helped you later on in life. And so then going over to Jimena, so same question. If you could tell us a little bit more about your time at UNG, because I think you studied abroad as well, and tell us a little bit more about those experiences and how that's really impacted your current career.
Yes. Okay. So I came from Mexico when I was like 14 years old. And so that transition from high school to college was really hard for me because I was here alone. Like my parents were still in Mexico. So I think at some point when I started like the application, like I saw that how much I needed to pay, like I got a little scared. And at some point I really thought about going back to Mexico and then continue my education in Mexico. However, I got a lot of support from a lot of people from UNG that helped me navigate FAFSA, the application, like everything, right? And then eventually, like I think I joined the Goisela scholarship, and then that helped me a lot. Then after that, I joined LSA, and then the magnet program. Then I was part of CAM. I was part of a lot of things. Like I got a lot of jobs at UNG too. I was in the language lab. I work with the National Competitive Scholarship Office. I work in admissions. I was everywhere. But yeah, so I think that just helped me a lot. Like I think LSA was the first thing that really helped me a lot to like get to know everything that was available for students and how much we can take advantage of it, you know? After that, like Magner, I applied for grad school. I applied for Fulbright. Like I went to Spain with the study abroad program at UNG. And then now, like this past those summers, I went to Spain and then I went to Argentina with UGA as like a assistant coordinator, something like that. So you know that really did open a lot of opportunities now where I am. So I don't know, my time at UNG was amazing, and I would say that I wouldn't be where I am without that experience, you know.
Mhm.
At first, I think it's always like I remember when I barely started at UNG, a lot of I was the first one, right, of all my cousins. But a lot of other people didn't think that UNG was a good school, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
So a lot of the things were like, oh, well, you're going to UNG? And for me, like, I just want to go to a university, you know, like I just want to study. I want to continue my education. Um, but once I was at UNG, I took advantage of all the opportunities. And like, I think as Ulis mentioned, like there's great people like Dr. Velasquez, Dr. Lynn, Kyle, like all those people helped me. And even now Dr. Velasquez is currently my mentor still, you know? Um, so yeah. So yes. Did I
Awesome.
answer the
No.
question?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, definitely, definitely. No, and I think it's great that, because you can't, left Mexico,
Mhm.
about the early teen, those are formative years, those early teen years, all,
Yes.
I mean, just all the stuff you go through as a teenager, and then pile on top of it, new language, new culture, new place to live, all the new stuff thrown on top of it. And you
Mhm.
persevered, even though at times I'm sure you doubted yourself and doubted, gosh, should I even be doing this? And all the challenges that, were in front of you. You just, you gutted it out and pushed right through it. And, now here you are,
Yes. And
master's
then also,
degree teaching, and yeah.
yeah. And then also like my first semester at UNG, my parents came to leave to the US. So
Mhm.
that was a lot for me too, because I needed to translate for them. I needed to figure out where we're gonna leave. Like
Mhm.
there was a lot of responsibility on my place, and I was still learning the culture. I was still learning English. So yeah, it was challenging. But here we
Right,
are.
right. Yeah, a lot put on your shoulders at a very young age. Yeah.
Yeah.
So of course, then Natalie, then same question to you, because I mean, gosh, and you've been able to do so many amazing things while at UNG. I remember when we were first meeting and working on your resume, back at the Gainesville campus, and I honestly, and I'm not just, honest to goodness, I'm not just saying this because you're one of our speakers today, but I remember even thinking she's going to do something important. I didn't know what it was, but I knew you were going to do something important because, when you meet a lot of people, you just, with some people, you just get a sense of this one's going to go far. I can't wait to see what she's doing. And then, all the updates I see on LinkedIn, I'm like, oh, yay, she's doing something that's amazing. So tell us, more about all the great accomplishments that you've had while you were at UNG and then, after.
Thank you, Lori. If I can be honest, I am still figuring out, and I think that's a lesson for all of us here, especially for undergrads. Life is just a matter of figuring out while you're in college, when you graduate, when you're out in the professional world, when you're an adult, when you get married and have children. We're all still figuring out. So, um, but I started at UNG in 2014. I had the pleasure of being on both campuses. I started in Gainesville, and eventually towards the last of my last year, I ended up in Dahlonega because I was a political science and Spanish Spanish translation minor. So a lot of my courses my senior year were in Dahlonega. I think as a first generation college student, I always say that UNG was a blessing because UNG gave me that one-on-one with my professors, with all the student organizations that I was involved in. it was the environment that I was meant to be, especially from a first gen college student who still hadn't experienced a lot of the world. You know, my classes were smaller, so I was able to, again, make that one-on-one connection with my professors. You know, we have the Multicultural Student Affairs Office, from which a lot of us were involved with the Latino Student Association, as well as the Goizeta Scholarship. And it became a snowball effect to where, you know, I think Jimena and Eudice can attest, from then on, we went to being involved with camp, with the trio with McNair. And I can say that, you know, McNair, the McNair Scholars Program really, really was life-changing in the sense that when I did my research on Hispanic serving institutions and the increase in Latinx enrollment, that ultimately was one of the reasons why I was able to get accepted into Harvard. And now, having that background on my research, as a business owner where I provide graduation stalls to students of diverse backgrounds, I have that network of McNair Trio, and it's all been a full circle moment. Like you said, Lori, I still remember when I was graduating and we were in your office. Well, you know, I've been able to go back and give a keynote speech for the Trio graduation. They also purchased graduation stalls for me, as well as McNair. They purchased my first ever order of graduation stalls. And, you know, now I'm also as well working with other Hispanic serving institutions throughout the country to be able to give a keynote speech, or again, provide them with graduation stalls. So again, it's all a snowball effect and full circle moment. Just last week, because I was awarded the Women of UNG Award, I think this was in like 2018. They just had their annual expo, so I was able to go back to UNG and you know, connect with the students, as well as showcase a little bit more about my business. So if I can say anything, is that as a first generation college student, UNG was absolutely wonderful to me.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, and like I said, all of you are just doing so many wonderful things. I love seeing all your updates, you know, for all of you on LinkedIn. And I'm like, oh, I knew them when, you know, so it's all fantastic. So, you know, especially because, you know, you've all faced, you know, some kind of challenge just, you know, in life, and all the things that have gotten you to where you are, you know, and how a lot of times when people are faced with those challenges, you know, they can get kind of really just focus on the negative, and just really get down, and sometimes that stops them for whatever reason. So I'm going to start with you, Jimena. When you were growing up, who inspired you? Who was it that, you know, kind of really kept you going through all those challenges?
Okay, so you know, you sent us a picture, and I was thinking about it yesterday, and I think my mom. So my mom, she grew up in a small import town in Mexico, and she was the first one leaving that town to continue her education. So she always believed in the power of the education. And I mean, eventually she was able to move to a city, Nayarit, right, the big. And then eventually, like, my grandparents moved with her. And then eventually all my uncles and aunts were able to get an education as well. When I decided that I wanted to come to the US, like when I was 14, you know, I told my parents, I was like, oh, I want to move to the US. I want to learn English, and then I want to come back. And my parents just look at me like, okay, I mean, if that's what you want to do, like, we support you. They support me 100%, you know? So I came to the US. After a year, I was like, I don't want to go back. Like, I want to stay. After 3 years, my parents came. My mom and my dad, like, they left all their life in Mexico to come to the US and help me accomplish my goal. Even now, my parents are my biggest supporter. Like, they believe in education. My mom is a teacher, and then my dad's an engineer. But of course, like, you know, their career they don't count here in the US. So now my mom works in a distribution center, and my dad works in a park, cleaning parks. So, you know, their life completely changed. And I think that's why they inspire me so much, because they believe in the power of my education in a way, even though they have their own education. So yeah, I would say my mom, and of course my dad, but more my mom.
Yeah.
She had to leave her town.
Yeah. And you know, and you had to leave, you know, your country. So
Yeah.
and so I'm sure that you know, really helped you to kind of make that decision, to see the courage it took for her it obviously went down into the genes there. So you were able to pick up on some of that too. So, so then Udis, same thing. Who was it that really inspired you, especially, you know, to not only go to college, but to go into your career field as well?
Yeah, so for me, I think definitely my family, especially my parents and my grandfather. My grandpa came to this country in the 80s. You know, he didn't know how to read or write in Spanish. And he came to a country that he probably only had heard on the radio of. And I couldn't imagine how it was coming here without knowing how to read or write. And then, so my grandfather came in the 80s, my dad came in 2001, and then me, my brother, and my mom came in 2010 when I was 13. So for me, you know, education has been so valuable because I went to school in El Salvador up into 6th grade. Um, and I had some classmates that will walk around 2 hours to come to school. So I knew that education is not accessible for some people. And some people wish that they had the opportunity that I had. They would literally do or give anything to have it. So I mean, I always knew, you know, that I was going to go to college. I didn't know how I was going to do it. So I remember one day I came to one of my best high school teachers and I said, I want to apply to college. I just don't know how. And she said, okay, bring all of these documents, and very legal documents now that I look back. And she helped me apply to Georgia Southern and UNG. And but I think my inspiration has always been, you know, my family. I come from very hardworking people that didn't have access to education. One of the stories that my dad will always tell me is that I think when he was in 3rd grade, my grandparents took him out of school because they needed him to work on the fields back in El Salvador. And he's like, you know, I begged my dad to leave me in school. And up until this day, it's like one of the most impactful stories I've heard. So he's like, you know, it's not that I want to do it. I begged my dad that I still wanted to continue to study, but he's the oldest out of his family. So they needed him on the fields more than they needed him in school. So for my dad, education for us, he makes sure that, you know, excuse me, we had it accessible. And just knowing that and that I was the one that had the opportunity, I knew that I needed to get to the finish line. There was not an option. I know school got tough at sometimes, but I knew that I had to do it because of my family. You know, there have been people in my family that, I mean, every single one of them wished that they were in my shoes. And I was the first one to be able to, you know, do it. So that has been my biggest inspiration. And up until this day, you know, my family is why I am successful in my real estate business, why I do everything.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I mean, yeah, and I think, you know, again, so many times, you know, when you're faced with some of those challenges, sometimes folks are like, well, this just seems too much. But then you think back to what, you know, your ancestors have gone through, you know, your parents, your grandparents, and think, well, gosh, if they were able to do this, you know, I can pass a math class, you know, I can get through this, I can figure out how to do this paperwork. And that's so great that you know, you reached out to one of your teachers and that they were able to really guide you and get you through all of that, because yeah, applying to college is overwhelming. And then when you have, you know, just no knowledge of what you have to do in the first place, just adds another layer of challenge to it. So that's fantastic that you had the courage to ask for help, because I think a lot of times people think they need to do it all on their own, don't need any help. And so it's great that you were able to do that. And so Natalie, I mean, gosh, you've gone on to Harvard, you've started your own business, you've got, you know, nonprofits, you're a speaker. So, you know, who inspired you to do all of these wonderful things?
Well, first, I want to highlight that a lot of what Jimena and Ulis mentioned really resonates with me. And I think for a lot of us that are first in, that are either immigrants ourselves or children of immigrant parents, our family is a huge reason why we do what we do. For me, back in Mexico, my parents didn't have the opportunity to study beyond middle school. Just like Odis was mentioning, my dad as well, he came to the US in the 80s. He was a migrant farm worker for many years. My mom still works at a poultry plant. And actually going back to that full circle moment, because my mom worked at Marjack, I was a recipient of the Marjack Foundation Scholarship all the years that I was at UNG, which is why I say I was meant to be at UNG because I was meant to be at UNG. Go Nighthawks. But yes, for me, most definitely my mom has sacrificed just so much for her daughter to, I remember my mom growing up, she'd always tell me like, Mija, like, I want you to be a professional. I want you to work in an office building with air conditioning. I don't want you working like I do, right? I want to be able to touch your hands and make sure that they're soft because you work in an office. You don't have to do physical labor like I do. And that always really inspired me. I also think about my grandmothers back in Mexico. They didn't have the option to even consider studying. They only had an elementary school education and they were brought up with this mindset of having children. My grandmother's, my maternal grandmother, she had 11 children. My paternal grandmother had 6 children, and for them studying wasn't even in the picture, right? It was just motherhood and raising their children. And for me, here in the US, because my parents sacrificed so much to come to this country, I have the option of studying. I have the option of pursuing motherhood. Again, it's I have options, right? And for me, obtaining an education, I always say, really became the definition of the American dream.
Yeah, definitely. And again, all of you are doing just so many wonderful things. And I know we've kind of been kind of like hitting on this a little bit, but I want to ask, a little bit more specific, how has being, Latinx made a positive impact on your time at UNG? And Natalie, I'll go back to you just really quick, and then we'll circle back around to everyone else. But and not only at UNG, but also in your career.
Oh, sorry, it got frozen for a little bit. I always say it comes with a lot of pride, but I think also a lot of responsibility. A lot of pride because I'm very proud of where I come from. I think my parents are always very intentional growing up. They used to say, "Mija, don't forget your roots," right? So I think at UNG, most definitely haven't been able to connect with other students with similar backgrounds. Just sharing with other people as well about my culture, about my background. And now in my career, I think especially as a business owner, what I do with my business is I work with artisans in Mexico to create the graduation stoles, the artisanal jewelry and artisanal sweets. And I'm able to give students connection to their heritage as well as immigrant communities, and a portion of the proceeds goes back towards buying school supplies for students in my hometown. And I think that's the beauty of culture. But also I think it's not always easy. And again, going back to having a lot of responsibilities. So when you're the first in your family to go to college, and I think especially the oldest child in immigrant parents, you have all your little cousins looking up to you, and then family friends, and it can be a lot of pressure. But again, it's also very beautiful to be able to highlight your culture and share it with others.
Fantastic. So Jimena, your turn. So how has being, Latina made a positive impact on your time at UNG as well as in your career? And how have you been able to, I guess even just living up to all those expectations?
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm so proud to be a Latina. I'm really proud. Like, I think I never really knew what Latina meant until I came to the US. And that was a big thing for me, even now. Like, I learned so much about other cultures, about the Latinx communities, every single day. But yes, so I think at UNG, the community, I was able to represent and also relate to a lot of other Latinos, Latinas, Latinx at UNG, of course, through LSA, through McNair, through CAM. And I think seeing other Latinos, Latinas, Latinx succeed really motivate me. I mean, Udis and Natalie are a great example. They're older than me. They graduated before me. And I always look up to them, you know? And, you know, it's always like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it too, you know? Also, like, I currently teach three Spanish classes. And, you know, sometimes like I include a lot of culture because I teach language. Teaching language is culture, right? So I'm teaching Spanish classes. So we talk about all countries in Latin America. And it's fascinating to me to see how little my students know about Latinx communities, you know? And just being able to share that and like talk from experience, it's just unique, you know? Like, and then not even that, but I feel like when you share that, my students are also able to learn more about their own culture as well. Because sometimes we don't think about it. And of course, like being the voice for my community, a lot of my students always share, like, I want to learn Spanish so I can give Spanish speech therapy, so I can help the Latino community. So my students come and they're like, guess what, miss? I went to a Mexican restaurant, I ordered in Spanish, you know, little things like that like resonate with me and just makes me really proud to be able to do that for my students. And not even that, but like sometimes like I give to UGA because I'm living in Florida Branch, right? But so I drive to Athens. And sometimes
wow.
when I get, well, I only drive Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so it's not bad. So when I get there, like sometimes I just don't believe where I am. Does that make sense? Like I was so scared of college once, and now I teach in college. And it's a great feeling.
Yeah, fantastic. That is awesome. So then Udis, so back to you. So then, same question, how has being Latino been a positive impact on your time and in your career?
I think, my time at UNG, there were people that came before me that obviously opened spaces for me. And it was just me trying to do the same for the generations to come after me. Like when I started abroad in China, I was one of two Hispanics on the study abroad trip. And out of all places that I could have gone, I went to China, which I think a lot of Latinos don't think that one, studying abroad is possible. And two, you put yourself in a different culture, but I just wanted to show people, that they can do it too. If out of everyone I did it, you have a bigger chance of doing it. And then I also lived on campus. So living on campus, there was only a few of us that were Latinos, and it's another challenge because oftentimes we don't leave our families to go to school. So connecting with those other students, trying to bring and be our authentic selves, being proud of being Latino wherever you are in the room, even though you have a little accent, but that accent is a spice, for everybody to know that you are Latino. So that was the biggest thing for me. And now that I'm in real estate in my career, I mentor 3 other agents that are also Latinos that I think they kind of found me on social media. I started real estate when I was young, or younger, I should say, because I'm still young. So, just being able to give back to the community, being able to show other Latinos, it is possible, you can do it. There will be obstacles, but there's people before you that have done it. And if no one has done it, be the first one to do it. I always joke with people. I say, when life throws you lemon, make orange juice, so they wonder how you did it.
It's pretty
So
awesome.
that's
Fantastic. Yeah, yeah, no, and actually I'll stick with you, Udis, for the next question here, because honestly, that leads right into what I wanted to ask you next is, what kind of impact do you want to have? What kind of lasting effect do you want to have, not only on the current students at UNG, but just in the community as well?
Yeah, so in the community, the impact that I would love to have is home ownership for Latinos. Again, it's another obstacle, another process that a lot of people have not done before in their families. I mean, I've met some families that have been renting since the 90s, 30 years. So the impact that I want to have on the Latino community is educating them. Education is so powerful, whatever you're doing in life. So I want to be an educator realtor because there comes so much power with that. When people are educated, they can make the best decisions for themselves, and that includes home ownership. And I think a lot of people, like many of us that go to university and don't know that those opportunities exist, I think it's the same thing applies to our community. They left everything behind on their home countries, come to this country, and giving the keys to somebody that has been renting for 30 years is one of probably, it brings so much joy to my heart that, we go into these homes and they're like, oh, this will be my daughter's room. We will have the carne asada here, or we will do this here. It is just so amazing. So I think that is the impact that I want to have in the Latino community, that they know that if they bought a home with me, that I gave them the educational piece that they needed to be able to go through that process, and for them to transfer that to other people. I think that would be the biggest thing.
Fantastic. Fantastic. That is awesome. That is really awesome. So Jimena, then same question to you. So I know you were already talking about, the impact you want to have on your students. So, maybe outside of UGA or just within your community or within your family, what kind of positive impact are you hoping to leave as well?
For me, I'm really passionate about education. So like I'm one of the oldest of my cousins here in the US. So just supporting all my family. Like I have a cousin that she's currently at Lanier, right? And every time she's struggling, she's like, hey Jimena, like, what do I do? Like, I'm trying to change majors. Should I? I'm scared to tell my mom, like, help me. So those little struggles that I once had, I want to be there for them. I have another cousin that just started at UNG. And I gave her a tour. We went to like look at the school. Like I told her who to go with. She needed a question. So it's just really nice for me to be able to do that for them. I was the first one in my family, but I'm not going to be the last one. And that's just powerful, and like not just in my family, but my community in general. Like I have people reach out to me and they're like, hey, like, can you give me an advice for grad school? Like, how do I go to grad school? How do I apply? What's a teaching assistant? What's the difference between a master's and a PhD? What's research? All those questions that I was not able to figure out until like maybe my third semester. But it's just nice to go through the struggles, and then be able to help others that are in your place now. But I think my biggest thing is just empowering through education, through teaching culture, through teaching language, of course. Like I think the biggest impact I do is teaching my non-Latinx students at UGA what's culture, what does it mean to be a Latina, so they can reflect on that, learn about it, and then be the voice for my community. Because one of them can be the one helping a parent that doesn't speak Spanish in the hospital, So yeah, that's my biggest thing. Like what they're gonna do with whatever they're learning, with the language, with the culture, when they're in those spaces.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Fantastic. And that's great that you can help out your family members so much, that you really have been the one to pave the way for them. And I bet they look up to you so much. And that's really cool that, you know, you have a cousin that's here at UNG and you're able to show around and all that. So that's pretty awesome. So Natalie, I mean, obviously your nonprofit is making an impact in your hometown. And so actually I'm wondering for you, what would be your next challenge that you want to tackle? What other kind of influence do you want to have, whether it's, you know, at, you know, your alma mater of UNG, doing more with Harvard, or just doing something completely different?
Yes, well, before I want to say there's a phrase that we have in Spanish and it's "si se puede," and it's yes, you can. And, you know, I think a lot of us at UNG are true testament that yes, si se puede, despite all the challenges. For me, personally, I want to scale my business, and I'm really, really happy because I've been part of the Georgia Hispanic Chamber for the last year, and I was just awarded a grant, and it's such a blessing, and that's going to help me scale my business even more. My next challenge, I would love to one day give a TEDx and be a TEDx speaker. But if I could tell something to students is it's okay to have doubts and it's okay to change your mind at times. So for me, when I started at UNG, I wanted to be a Spanish teacher and then I wanted to be an immigration lawyer, right? Yes, very different. And along the way, while I was at Harvard, I stumbled into entrepreneurship and I really, really love what I'm doing now. And yes, I'm focused on entrepreneurship, but also I found a way to give back and still sticking back to my passion for education. So again, I think it's a matter of figuring it out as you go, and you're gonna end up where you're meant to end up.
Yes, awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing you announce that you're a TEDx speaker, because I'm sure it'll happen. It's just a matter of time. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Give it a year or two.
No pressure, right?
Yeah, no pressure. No, but I'm looking for that post. So yeah, no pressure at all. But and Jimena, you had, you know, touched on this a little bit. But I'm going to go to Udis really quick, and then I'll circle back to you. But how do you think that others can be more of an ally to the Latinx community? You know, if that maybe they're not in Jimena's class. What are some ways that folks can support the Latinx community? Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, there we go.
I think there is different ways of supporting. I mean, most of my best mentors at UNG are not Latinos, and I credit a lot of my success to them. I remember Caroline Samples, she's no longer at UNG, but I came to her office one time and I mean, I was a mess, trying to register for classes, changing majors, and so many other things. And I think, you know, she did not maybe fully understand my background, my Latino roots, but she was so intentional. And, you know, she just asked all the questions and from a learning perspective, and just provided me with so much knowledge, so much tools that I did not know about. So a lot of times I think, don't treat, you know, your Latino students any different sometimes, because sometimes they do know and sometimes they don't. But I think asking those questions, being intentional, hey, how can I support you? Because with that, they will open up and maybe say, you know, I was here for a resume, but I'm actually going through A, B, C, D. So I need help with that. Or I'm here for this specific thing, but I don't know how to get to. I mean, I used to talk to a lot of students at UNG. They didn't know what the writing lab was, that there was an accounting lab, that there's a language lab, that there is a clinic, I mean, so many things. That I think, you know, you don't know what you don't know until you know what you know. So I think supporting them in that aspect, you know, providing resources, and a lot of times we just assume that people know things, and move on because it's our daily practices. So I think that's one of the best ways that you can support them. ask them, hey, is there anything else I can help you with? Or, hey, is everything else going good? And maybe that question will lead up to different questions. And also, I mean, another thing that I think, don't assume that people speak or don't speak a language that they look or they don't look what they look like. I remember when I used to do orientation, a lot of the known Latino parents would ask me, where are you from? And by that point, I had lived in Gainesville for half of my life. So, I'm a Salvadorian as I am from this country. So I would tell them, oh, I'm from Gainesville. And sometimes it will be in Oconee or Delani, and they would be like, no, but where are you from? Like, where are you really from? I'm like from Gainesville, like, in Hall County. But I think, I mean, that's one of the things, that I kind of dislike when people assume that I don't belong here or that I shouldn't be here. I mean, what tells you that I shouldn't be here? So, just being kind of sometimes knowledgeable of that line of like, or get to know people before you ask that. So I think those are some of the ways that you can support your Latino students.
Fantastic. And I honestly, I just looked at the time and I was like, oh no, we need to get to at least one or last question before we wrap it up. The time goes by too fast. Y'all have so many wonderful things to say. So Natalie, I'm going to start with you with our last question here. And I mean, I know we've touched on a couple of these different qualities, throughout our conversation today, but do you have any, other kind of specific career advice on, how people can be successful and, what has really helped you get you to where you are in your career, especially if someone wants to set off in a similar direction, if they're looking at an Ivy League school, how do they prepare themselves for that? What are some qualities that, that students can right now kind of prepare themselves with and help them be successful in their careers as well?
I will say one thing, grades are not everything. And this is coming from Natalie, who failed college algebra her first year at UNG because math is, oh my gosh, it's not for me, but I try, right? So I failed college algebra my first semester, had to retake it at UNG, ended up at Harvard, right? So that's a whole story for another day. But grades are not everything. It's really your intentions, right? If you have genuine intentions, if you really love what you're doing, you're gonna end up getting that scholarship. You're gonna end up getting that internship. You're gonna end up connecting with that right person. And all of that, it's gonna lead you to where you're meant to be, whether it's the university of your dreams, whether it's your dream job. And you have to every single day give it your best shot. My biggest number one recommendation for students, the sooner you can get your LinkedIn activated, the better. Please, please, please. Like, even if you don't have yet your profile picture, even if you don't have your bio yet, make sure you have your LinkedIn, because on LinkedIn, it's where I've learned about so many opportunities, including grants, scholarships, networking programs. It's where I've started following people that I really admire, and I've actually connected with them and had that one-on-one meeting with them, whether it's through Zoom or in person. And they've been able to open doors and mention my name in places where perhaps they never would have mentioned them if I had never had a LinkedIn, connected with them and done that follow-up. That's one. And two, you can have your full-time job and also have a side hustle, right? I recommend that if you're passionate about many things, but not fully sure that you want to pursue that one thing, it's okay to, like, again, keep your full-time job and continue that on the side. And I think for me, the biggest thing that has led me to where I'm at today are the mentors that I had at UNG. And one of them being, of course, Dr. Lynn, Dr. McDaniel, and El Profe Efren, Dr. Velasquez, who helped me with my research on Hispanic serving institutions. So again, I believe that I'm at where I'm at because of the mentors that I've had in the past.
Fantastic. So Jimena, then same question to you, what kind of career advice do you have? Especially if, someone is going on for their master's, they want to, travel abroad. You've done a lot as well, very successful. So, what are some of the qualities that students need to be working on and some of the things that they can be doing right now?
Yes. Okay. So I wrote 3 things, right? So believe in yourself, work hard, and be kind to yourself. And the third one is the most important. Give yourself breaks. I feel like as Latinx students, we have so much pressure from family, from friends. We see other friends doing these amazing things, and you're like, oh my God, I'm not there yet. So just be kind to yourself. Everyone has their own journey. Everyone has their own family problems. Everyone comes from different backgrounds, different places, different language, language competence. So yeah, so just be kind to yourself. I think that's something I learned during my graduate school journey, because I was just go, go, go. And I was comparing myself with other students, with PhD students, because I was in classes with PhD students. They're amazing. They know a lot, but they did a master's before me. And that's something I needed to remind myself. Like, they did a master's before me and they're doing their PhD now. So just be kind, take breaks when you need to. Enjoy your family too. I think that's a big thing for me. Like, when I needed to like take a break, I would just go to my grandparents' house, So I think that was just so important for me. And then another thing would be just find your community at school, because you need that. Find a family as UNG in this case that you can count on. Because you can't do it alone. Like, sometimes we think that we can, but we shouldn't. There's always people that's gonna be there to support you, mentors, friends, family. So yeah, like, I think last week, I'm an instructor right now, and last week I was like going to the bathroom, and then I saw the head of the department of Romance languages where I work, and she just saw me. She was like, "Hey, how are you doing?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing fine. I love my job. Thank you." And she was like, "Hey, have you thought about like applying for this assistant director position?" And for me, it was like, assistant director, like, am I there yet? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes we don't believe in ourselves as much as other people do, but it's so important to reflect on where we are and how much we can accomplish, because the worst thing that can happen is they tell you no, and
Right.
then that was not for you. So
Right.
yeah, just believe in yourself, work hard, and be kind to yourself.
Right. And you're right. It's very easy to compare to others, and, the good and the bad of social media is you see all these other things people are doing, but you never see all, that work that it takes to get there. So and then you start going, oh, why am I not there yet? And I thought it was great that you pointed out, but they've already done 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I mean,
work.
even with Natalie and Udis, I like used to compare myself, and I'm like, they're doing all of this. Why am I doing? But no, like, we all have different journeys. And I mean, Natalie told me before, like, you're doing so amazing, like, you're doing all of this too. So, we compare ourselves sometimes without even realizing. And at the end of the day, like, I want the best for Udis, I want the best for Natalie, and I know they want the best for me.
Right.
So
Right. Awesome. Awesome. So Udis, you get the final word. So what are your last bits of career advice and how students can, get to where you are, get to where all of you are? What's helped you, be successful?
Yeah, and I think mine will be a little different than both Jimena and Natalie. I always say, whatever you are, be a good one. So I graduated UNG. I have my life figured out. I was supposed to be at the University of Tennessee. I moved to the University of Tennessee to get a master's. COVID happens. I find myself in a parking lot with everything that I have packed to move to University of Tennessee. A month after I did that, in my car on my way home. Life is so unpredictable, and you just don't know where you will end up. I mean, some people told me that I was crazy to leave a full ride scholarship to the University of Tennessee, which I have been working for the last 2 years of my undergrad. But I mean, I told myself that day, that car, 5 years from now, you cannot regret this decision. Tomorrow, you cannot regret it. 10 years, you cannot regret it. And I think sometimes you know you just have to live life. Whatever you do, be good at it and do good. And now, I'm in real estate. I fell into real estate uh, out of nowhere, and I love what I do. Be passionate about what you do. And if you don't like what you're doing, do something else. There is not a path that you have to follow. I mean, I'm a very successful realtor in my industry, and if you told me 4 years ago that I would be doing what I'm doing today, I would have laughed at your face and kept going. So, I mean, life is unpredictable. We can only plan, but we don't know where we'll end up at. But wherever you end up, just do the best you can and be happy with what you do. Like, I wake up every day and I love what I do. Like, truly enjoy what I do. It brings me so much happiness to my heart. Still helping people. And I think a lot of times we put that idea in our head that, oh, we have to do this and this is what we have to do. I knew I always wanted to help people, but now it's at a different capacity. I mean, I was an academic advisor before doing real estate. I love that. But now, I feel like I get to connect with so many people. I still get to advise people in different things in life. And I mean, I'm just so happy overall. So, find something you love doing it and be good at it.
Fantastic. And that is a great note to end on. And I'm going to launch our last poll here. It's a 2-question part. I hope you feel motivated after this chat, because these are definitely some motivating and inspirational folks. So we have 2 questions here. After this chat, I feel motivated to pursue my career goals. And then the second question is, I'm interested in connecting further with UNG alumni via email, LinkedIn, or more chats or alumni association. And as Natalie had mentioned, and I had probably mentioned a few times, they're all on LinkedIn. I'm sure they would be happy to connect with their fellow Nighthawks. So if you wouldn't mind filling out that poll just really quick before we close it out for the day. So while I give my parting thoughts, again, thank you so much. I know you were all super busy. We've been planning this for a while, and Natalie really helped me out as well when we were brainstorming, how should we do this career chat? So Natalie, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful time to see you again, and great to see Jimena and Udis again. It's been a while, so it's nice to see all of your wonderful faces and see all the great things that you're doing. So thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. And as always, I wish you continued success and wish you all the very best. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for
much.
having us.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.